If your child has separation anxiety at nighttime and struggles to sleep independently, it can be horribly exhausting and very frustrating not knowing how to get them to stay in their bed. In this short video, we'll break down nighttime anxiety for children and how to strategically parent them to learn to sleep independently and feel safe in their beds all through the night. Welcome to Root Cause of Happiness. I'm Dr. Sarah Bryn Morrow, licensed psychologist, therapeutic yoga teacher, and optimal wellness educator. I teach the physiology of mental health and the skills to overcome suffering at the root cause. My intention is to empower others to become increasingly resilient by understanding the many pieces of the puzzle to deep healing. Please join me as we explore the root cause of happiness. The most common form of childhood anxiety disorders is separation anxiety, and especially being separated from parents at nighttime. I have helped countless children be able to find a sense of safety, learn to self-soothe, and overcome their nighttime anxiety so that they can sleep independently in their own beds and feel safe. I rarely see parents as exhausted and frustrated as parents who can't get their child to sleep in their own bed. It can be just a nightly struggle that really wears down the whole family. Anxiety is not your child's choice nor their fault. If you think about evolutionary biology, it makes sense why so many children have a fear of the dark and a fear of being separated from their parents at nighttime. Through all of human history until very recently, families slept together in one small space. So if you think about living in a cave or a teepee or a small hut, babies, young children were never separated from their parents, really not until they were nearing their own adulthood. And at nighttime, we didn't have any artificial lighting, so there truly was an increased risk of safety concerns with predatory animals or an inability to see threat coming that made us feel more vulnerable at nighttime. So starting out, we have to have a little bit of compassion for our kids and also normalize their anxiety for them. It's very helpful to talk with your child in the daytime about their nighttime struggles and try to help them make sense of it. Talk about how many kids have a fear of the dark, lots of kids feel nervous in their beds when they're alone, and how while it does make sense based on human history and our human biology, it doesn't really make sense anymore in this modern era, knowing that we are safe in our homes regardless of which room we're in or how far we are separated from our parents within our home. I would recommend actually for babies and toddlers who aren't yet very verbal that if they really do need to co-sleep, that you consider that option. It's a little bit challenging because kiddos can be squirmy and disrupt your own sleep a little bit, but you might actually find that it's what your baby needs for a period of time. By toddlerhood, 2 years old or so, it becomes essential that we start teaching our children how to sleep in their beds independently. And it might be that we start to practice and enforce a bedtime in their own bed, in their own room. But if they wake up at night, perhaps for a period of time, we allow them to come to our beds and then co-sleep. But for sure, as we move into, 3 years old, 4 years old, we have to continue to work on this goal of independent sleep. It's important for the parents' quality of sleep, but also for our children learning to feel safe in their own home environment and overcoming any false alarm anxiety that they might be experiencing. For more in-depth information on general anxiety in children and how to parent strategically, refer back to my last video. And also I have videos on sleep to help with strategic sleep, to help with any insomnia that might be a contributing factor to your child's sleeping issues. So for nighttime separation anxiety, though, assuming your child is, say, at least 4 years old or so, we want to set this as a goal. So in the daytime, outside of any nighttime stress, we want to sit down with our child and define this as a goal that it's time to start working on in the family. So we can balance our compassion with a bit of a loving nudge, saying, I know that you miss us at nighttime. That does make sense based on how humans used to live and what nighttime used to be like for people. But now we know it's really lovely. We each have our own beds, a bit of personal space. We don't disrupt each other as much. And you're old enough to learn to sleep in your bed independently throughout the night. I know you might be nervous thinking about taking on this goal. I know you might feel really scared thinking about changing our habits of you coming to our room or whatever the behavior might be. But this is a goal we need to work on so that you learn to sleep really well and that mom and dad can also get better sleep. So define this as a goal, but reassure them. This isn't urgent. We don't have to do this immediately, but we have to start chipping away and taking little baby steps towards your nighttime healthy, independent sleep. Set up some stages. So we're going to talk about goal number 1, maybe goal number 2. There'll be intermediary steps with the ultimate goal of saying goodnight, tucking them in, walking out, and saying hello in the morning. And we want to probably have a reward program for younger kids to help motivate them to take on this goal. So that might mean that we create a chart where we keep track, maybe just on a monthly calendar. So I often recommend parents will just print a free monthly calendar out. And then each morning they can make little notes or a little color coding system perhaps about how their child did that prior night. And then as we see our child achieving some of those baby steps along the way, we can have rewards tied to that. One way to do a reward program is to offer tokens. So we might set up a few goals. Goal number 1 is we'll tuck you in and say goodnight, but then we'll come check on you every 5 minutes. If you stay in bed until you fall asleep, we'll give you 1 token. The next goal is that if you wake up at night, you can call for us, but you won't get up. We will come to you. That can be worth another token. And another goal might be staying in your bed through the night till morning, which would be maybe 2 tokens. And then we can have sort of a bank where we put their poker chips or marbles, and then perhaps at 20 tokens, they can earn a reward off a list of positive activities or prizes that you've identified ahead of time. There's no one exact way to do a reward program. Some kids really love to have a treasure chest where you just have small little affordable treats or gifts wrapped up in colorful paper, and it's in a box and they can pick out something from the treasure chest. So be creative. Your family might have a favorite way to do a reward program, but it can be helpful to add some reinforcement, some prizes to motivate your child to get on board with working on this goal and dig deep to try their best to resist that urgency or that temptation to get up and wake you up or come sleep with you. So define the goal ahead of time and reassure your child it's okay if this takes some time, but we need to work on it. Then I would start working on shaping. So what I often see is that parents have kind of gotten roped into sleeping with their child throughout the night, or their child, as soon as they wake up, will run to their parents' bedroom and expect that they are entitled to sleep with mom and dad the rest of the night. And so we want to change this behavior. What we want to do is really strive to have our child stay in their bed throughout the whole night. So it might mean that you've been sleeping with your child and they need you physically there in bed with them until they're sound asleep. Maybe you also stay through the night. So we would change this to you sitting perhaps at the foot of the bed, within reach, but not talking with your child, not cuddling them, but just a physical close presence, maybe a hand on their foot or leg, but you're waiting for just a check-in, and then you're going to come back and check again often. So depending on your child's level of anxiety, it might be hard for them to separate for even a minute. So in that case, we'd start with you sitting on the end of their bed for a period of time. Hopefully they fall asleep. The next few nights, we'd sit in a chair right next to their bed. Then maybe the chair moves toward the doorway, and then you move your chair into the hallway. So if your child cannot tolerate nighttime separation at all, we'd want to do this gradual shaping, step by step, inch by inch, moving you physically away from your child, but being patient and telling them that you will continue to sit in their room and be very close by until we're ready for that next step. So if we have to start with that small of baby steps, that's where we begin, shaping some distance little by little away from the child's bed and no longer being physically in contact with the child as they fall asleep. The next step is to check on them in increasing increments of time. So we would then say, okay, I've now been out in the hallway for the last few nights. Now we're going to change our system. I will always tuck you in, say goodnight, spend a couple minutes with you, but then I'm going to leave. But you can be reassured that I'm going to set a timer, and every maybe 2 minutes, I'm going to come and check on you. So you'd show your child, see, I've got my phone with my timer. And when I walk out, I'm going to set 2 minutes and I'm going to come and check on you. Now that sounds really annoying, but we're going to continue to increase the increments of time that our child can be in bed alone slowly at their tolerance. So at first we have to start really small and make it really easy for them to stay put and not get up out of bed. So we would set a timer, come back in. I would just walk in, touch their back or their foot and say, I'm just checking, and walk out. Set the timer, come back a few minutes later. Now, as 2 minutes is easy, we're going to increase that to 4 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and increase the chunks of time that we have our child alone in their bedroom. But they start to build this trust that even though mom's not here with me, she will be back in just a few minutes to check on me. I'm not abandoned. If I need anything, she'll be here soon, and I can just stay in bed and relax. And so we try to increase those chunks of time to hopefully 10 minutes between checks, maybe 15 minutes for the next one. And that could take a week or two to keep increasing those increments of time, slowly extending our child's tolerance of being in bed alone at night. Again, in the morning, we're going to review how they did. Hey, you were able to stay in bed. You didn't get up at all. That's a token. You didn't call out for me in the night. That's a token. You stayed in bed the whole night. That's your 2 tokens. So again, referring back to the reward program and trying to praise them, reward them with the token system if you're doing that, and highlight their successes. And then we take a step up the ladder and go to our next level of challenge for our child. So this is called shaping, and it's sort of a gradual desensitizing our child away from total dependence on us being with them in bed to physically separating, and then to having increasing increments of time in which they're alone in their bed. From there, we want to think about if our child gets out of bed, what do we do? So very often our children just refuse to stay in their beds, and it can be so frustrating. That's usually where parents end up just staying in their child's bedroom through the night. And so we want to tell our child we have a new system. We're not going to do that anymore. If you get up in the night, we're going to walk you back to bed and tuck you in. Now, I will tell you that this can be difficult at first. Some children really fight and kind of panic, desperate to not have the system change. So instead of getting up and reprimanding them or talking to them or soothing them very much, you want to be very robotic through the night. So you don't want to give any reinforcement. We don't want it to be exciting or engaging or interesting or even comforting for our children to get out of bed at night. But we will get up very robotically, saying as little as possible, trying to stay quiet, walk them back to bed, tuck them in, and then walk back out. And at first, this can be hard if your child's really fighting you. But if they get out of bed again, you're going to walk them back, tuck them in, Maybe you sit at the end of their bed for a minute and then you're going to walk out. So what you're doing is you're showing your child through behavior, I mean what I say. I've let you know that you're not going to be getting out of bed throughout the night. If you need me for a real reason and you call for me, I'll be there. But you're not going to be able just to leave your room and come into our bed. And so we keep walking them back to their room, tucking them in, and walking out. What will happen is that the child starts to learn that they're not in control of this anymore. Mom or dad are in control. And they can get up, but they're not going to get much. They're not going to be allowed to stay in the parent's bed. And they're also not going to get a parent sleeping with them or talking with them or, keeping them company. It's really helpful if your child struggles to self-soothe to work on some intentional nighttime relaxation skills. I have a whole video about sleep strategies, and I might reference that as a more detailed lecture to turn to. But some things to think about are that your child might benefit from having some quiet instrumental music playing. So again, not entertaining or fun music, but just a quiet, soothing music, kind of like what you might hear at the spa with piano or harp or something like that. And that can be playing. Music is a helpful cue that kind of gets us out of the worried thinking mind and attending to a soothing stimulus of that music. Some kids really struggle to get out of their thinking brain, and that's where audiobooks are sometimes helpful. They're not my first choice because I've found some kids will actually get really into an audiobook and stay awake for a long time. But for some kids, just hearing a story kind of playing in the background, it can just be enough to get them out of their thinking brain and able to fall asleep more quickly. So that's sometimes an option I'll recommend parents try if they have a very anxious child who really worries a lot at nighttime. Other things to teach your child are how to anchor the mind to a one point of awareness. So whether that is attending to the breath and trying to hold awareness on the breath, counting exhales up to 10. If you can attend to 10 breaths, starting back over at 1. So that's a soothing way to anchor the mind and regulate the breath. Teaching them to breathe nose to belly, belly rise on inhale, falls on exhale, and slow the exhale down. Bedtime's a great time to work on intentional breathing anyway, helping our child really build an awareness of their breath and how to use the breath to self-regulate. We also can do a body scan or a visualized progressive muscle relaxation, imagining each muscle group softening like a beautiful soothing light scanning through the body. We could also teach our child to do a mental vacation, and we could have them pick a favorite place or even a fantasy land of their choosing where they use all of their senses to explore that image. What this does is gives the mind something to work on, something to attend to, but it's not scary, it's not worried thoughts, it's not catastrophic images of, danger and scary ideas of what could happen at night alone. So we can anchor awareness to the body, the breath, or images in the brain through visualization. So these are different things we can do to help our child learn to self-soothe and anchor the mind and be able to relax enough to fall asleep. So be patient and know that sometimes this is more of a long-term goal. I don't recommend that you try to sedate your child, especially with melatonin. Melatonin is questionable for regular use in children in that it is a synthetic hormone and does show the possibility of delaying puberty for some kids. And so melatonin is really useful if you're traveling and have to adjust to a new time zone or adapt to jet lag. But melatonin as a nightly supplement is not ideal. In my video on sleep, I talk about some safer alternatives you might consider, like chamomile tea, even having a warm glass of milk, a little bit of oatmeal before bed. There are certain foods and herbs that are fairly relaxing and known to help with melatonin production, but safer than using a synthetic hormone like a melatonin supplement. So we want to just be patient and strategic. We want to have compassion that our child truly does feel scared at night without us. Help them understand that that is normal and lots of kids have that fear. But we can teach the brain that it is safe in our home. We are safe at nighttime now. We don't live in a little hut where there are lions outside. We live in our lovely home with locking windows and doors. If you need your parent, you can just call out and we will come to you. If we happen to not hear our child, we give them permission to get up and come get us, but we will walk them back and help them settle back down in their own bed. Work on these little baby steps of shaping separation. So starting by physically moving a little bit farther away from their bed, out the doorway to their hallway, and then increments of time in which they know that we will come check on them and they can count on us being there in just a small window of time, increasing those increments as our child builds the ability to be alone in their bed at night. Have faith, stay the course, set up that reward program so your child knows that there are positive things that will come from working hard at this goal, and really celebrate their little successes, high fives and hugs. You can even call grandma or a friend and brag about your child's progress where they can overhear that. That will kind of make them feel good about, hey, mom's really proud of me. She's even telling grandma how well I did last night. And even those rewards can just keep your child motivated to do the hard work of overcoming that nighttime separation anxiety. So it can take a little bit of time and patience working on this, but usually within just a few weeks, your child can learn to sleep independently through the night and have much less anxiety going to bed. And of course, that makes life better for everybody. Thank you for joining me at Root Cause of Happiness. If this information was useful to you, please share it with others seeking knowledge and tools for resilience. It is a meaningful contribution to the world when we become proactive in our healing journeys, by learning and growing, by increasing our awareness, by addressing the root cause of happiness.